All right, let's just dive right in. You know that feeling when you are just completely exhausted by the relentless, almost toxic competition of the modern workplace? Or maybe you're hitting a literal wall of burnout trying to constantly climb the corporate ladder. Well, if that sounds like you, this explainer is absolutely for you. Today, we're unpacking some truly fascinating source material that completely redefines career advancement. And surprise, we aren't looking at some trendy new corporate strategy guide. Instead, we're drawing from an ancient philosophy that flips the entire script on how we find success. We're going to look at exactly how to balance your own personal development with finding this profound joy in helping others.
So I want you to just sit with a kind of counterintuitive question for a second. What if the secret to gaining influence is giving away all the credit? I know. In our standard corporate mindset, we're taught to literally fight for recognition, right? We meticulously track our wins, and we make absolutely sure the boss knows exactly what we contributed to the project. But think about it. What if that relentless fight for visibility is actually the root of our workplace exhaustion? What if constantly grabbing for the spotlight is actually making us weaker, not stronger?
Okay, Section 1, the Bodhisattva shift, moving from self to other.
Now, this whole shift actually comes from the profound wisdom of an 8th century text. It's called the Bodhisattva, which translates to entering the path of enlightenment. Let's look closely at this one incredible verse. It says, "For those lacking joy, the multitude of suffering beings, may I be sufficient to bring them all peace and joy and sever all their suffering." It's a really powerful statement, isn't it? The text basically identifies the root of our suffering as being totally trapped in our own ignorance and endless self-interest. You see, when we're only focused on ourselves, our promotions, our stress, our workload, we're actually locking ourselves into this state that completely lacks true joy.
So what does this Bodhisattva mindset actually look like for us today? Well, it's really about breaking that deeply ingrained habit of only seeking personal gain. Instead, you actively choose to act as a source of peace, joy, and relief for others. And let me be really clear right off the bat, this is not about pity. It's definitely not about looking down on your struggling coworkers. Actually, it's an active, super courageous commitment to shoulder the burdens of the team. It means stepping up to be the anchor when everyone else is kind of drifting. And paradoxically, this outward focus becomes the ultimate catalyst for your own personal development and resilience.
To put this in perspective, think about your classic, traditional worker. They fight tooth and nail for credit, and they get constantly frustrated by their colleagues' problems, mostly because those problems get in the way of their own success. It's an exhausting way to live. Now contrast that with the Bodhisattva worker. They find genuine joy in helping others succeed. Instead of groaning when a coworker desperately asks for help with a broken spreadsheet at like 4 p.m. on a Friday, they actually view it as the perfect opportunity to practice compassion. And here's the ultimate irony of the whole thing. By giving up that aggressive fight for credit, the Bodhisattva worker actually massively enhances their personal influence. People just naturally gravitate towards, trust, and elevate someone who's genuinely invested in their success.
Moving on to Section 2, Transforming the Toxic, Office Conflicts as Self-Improvement.
Let's get real for a second and apply this philosophy to the actual messy friction of everyday office life. Think about a couple of incredibly common workplace challenges. First up, the complaining toxic coworker. We've all been there, right? The standard reaction is to just avoid them or complain about them behind their back. But the compassionate resolution? Use tolerance. You have to recognize that their toxicity really just stems from their own inner anxiety and suffering. By bringing tolerance into the interaction, you actually ease their anxiety and resolve the conflict. Second scenario, facing unfair blame or hostility. Like when someone totally throws you under the bus on a catastrophic reply-all email. Your immediate instinct is for sure to fight back, to retaliate with anger. But the source material advises using empathy instead. Try to understand the immense pressure or ignorance that's driving their hostility. When you combine wisdom and compassion like this, you completely neutralize the toxicity and you transform the conflict into an incredible resource for your own self-improvement.
All right, Section 3, Compassion in the Chaos, Maintaining Peace During the Rush.
Now look, I know what you're thinking. It is way harder to maintain the Zen mindset in the middle of a chaotic Tuesday afternoon rush when everything feels like it's literally on fire. But the source text actually gives us some very concrete actions to maintain proactive care during those high-stress hours. First is the morning intention. Before you open a single email, just pause, visualize your team, and dedicate your workday to being a cause of peace for them. It just sets a great baseline. Second, shift your response. When a colleague hits a major hurdle, don't just offer empty sympathy. Actively ask them,
Hey, how can I help you find peace in this situation? And third, transform adversity. When a project goes sideways, and it will, view that setback not as a personal failure, but as a chance to absorb the stress and suffering for the team. Remember, true compassion isn't just a fleeting feeling, it's a deliberate, practiced action.
Section 4. Leading with great compassion. The ultimate soft skill for managers.
Now, if you are leading a team, or you aspire to, you might be worrying that this mindset shift just makes you a pushover. Absolutely not. In fact, it creates the most highly influential and resilient leaders out there. Look at how a Bodhisattva leader's focus breaks down. A massive 50% of their focus is simply on transcending self-interest. They aren't constantly worried about how they look to upper management. They are focused entirely outward. Then, 30% is dedicated to having what's called great compassion for their team's daily struggles. And because of those two huge factors, the remaining 20% naturally just results in building a highly cohesive team culture. When leaders stop managing for their own ego and start managing to alleviate their team's obstacles, they build profound, unshakable trust. It's a real game changer.
There's this one line from the text that just hits the nail on the head regarding this realization. When I see suffering and cannot bear it, my mind transcends self-centeredness and accesses the power of great compassion. For a manager, when you truly cannot bear to see your team burnt out or struggling, your ego just completely vanishes. You aren't operating from a place of me anymore. This kind of compassionate commitment allows senior staff that effortlessly transcend self-interest, leading with this really genuine, grounded authority that people just inherently want to follow. Which brings us to Section 5, your daily Zen practice, small acts, infinite impact. The best part is, you definitely don't need to retreat to a mountain to do this. You can literally start practicing it at your desk right now. Drawing right from the Bodhisattva, here are 3 small acts of compassion you can start implementing daily in the office. Number 1, proactively check on your isolated, anxious, or struggling colleagues. Be that safe harbor for them. Number 2, help others achieve their goals without constantly comparing yourself to them or, seeking praise for your help. Just do it quietly. And number 3, dedicate your daily work efforts to the peace and happiness of the entire team. Literally remind yourself, I'm doing this spreadsheet, I'm building this presentation, so my team can succeed. Because when we stop asking, how can I be happy, and start asking, who can I make happy, we step onto the true path of influence and fulfillment.
So here's the big question I'm going to leave you with today. Are you ready to stop fighting for yourself and start leading for others? I mean, it definitely requires some serious courage to drop the armor of self-interest in such a hyper-competitive world. But as our source material so clearly shows, making the joy of others your ultimate career direction might just be the most liberating and practically influential choice you ever make. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you take some of these ideas into your workplace tomorrow.